Hello and welcome to episode 78 of the DX Mentor, a discussion with Walt, K4OGO, about his book, Salty Walt's Antenna Sketchbook. And of course, we're going to find out about Walt as well. In addition to Walt, we have Tom, NR8Z, and Joe, WAGEX, joining us. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Bill, AJ8B. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. We have a back catalog covering many aspects of DX in both podcast and YouTube format. Please check us out. If you like what you find, please subscribe, like, and share to always be notified about upcoming events. Another way to keep in touch and to see what we're up to is via the DX Mentor Facebook page. I will be posting about upcoming podcasts as well as other DX events, so please follow us. You can check the show notes today for any information that we discussed. Before we get started, I'd like to share this with you. I received the following from Brian, KB1 Oscar Papa Delta. Hi, Bill. I listened to your podcast on my way to and from work. It would be great if the feed also included the DX Corner show you do each week. I worked FK8HM with 5 watts to a 71-foot wire using FT8 on 10 meters Saturday. Love DX. 7.3s from KB1 OPD. Well, Brian, you kind of read my mind. Joe and I have been kicking this around, and starting in November, we will be posting every Saturday. This Week in DX will be on both podcast format and YouTube format. So hopefully other people will respond and they'll like it that way. So thanks for your comment. I really appreciate it. And thanks for being such a dedicated listener. The book that Walt has written is different from any other technical book I've ever read. Walt sums it up by saying, quote, "This isn't the Mozart of antenna books, it's the Jimmy Buffett," end quote. And I love that quote. Let's tune in and listen to the fun. I'll tell you, we had a blast. Well, good evening and welcome to the latest episode of the DX Mentor. I'm Bill, AJB, and we have a group tonight that you are going to love listening to. You're going to learn a lot, and you're going to get your soldering iron and wire out after this. I know you will, and try some things. So I'd like to read you an intro about our guest tonight, and then we'll start our roundtable. I'm going to look away a little bit, which is rude, a little rude, I guess, but this is from the ARRL website, and it's our guest of honor, K4OGO, Salty Walt, which I keep wanting to say Walt Salty or something, but Salty Walt, of the Coastal Waves and Wires YouTube channel, where all the action happens, right on the beach. Ham radio adventure awaits with these 15 portable antenna designs. Walt begins with the basics of setting up a quarter or halfway vertical and then draws readers into more experimental designs like his own Coastal 20 or an end-fed vertical made with a slinky. Each sketch, reproduced from Walt's own design notebook, provides wire length and practical attachment information along with illustrative feed, balun, and unin options. In addition to his sketches, Walt offers portable construction operating tips and just enough about counterpoise wires and ground to let you get to making contacts in no time. This isn't a heavy-duty treatise on maximally efficient antennas. It's a book for the true amateur, the ham who gets out by the waves with a radio to see what they can make happen. Like Walt says, I love this quote, "This isn't the Mozart of antenna books, it's the Jimmy Buffett." No seaside excursion should be complete without a visit to the local clam shack or oyster bar. Walt pairs each antenna with a dining spot you can try whether you're on Waimea Beach in I can't say this, in Kauai, deep in the Big Easy's French Quarter, or on the long Atlantic stretch of Nags Head, North Carolina. Walt guides you to some of the best chowders, fish tacos, crab legs, and more, all while building antennas, making contacts, and soaking up some coastal rays. And my wife, being from Rhode Island, went through your book. It's the only ham radio book she's ever looked at of mine. So the goal is to focus on experimentation and fun. This book is intended for the true amateur who enjoys experimenting, building, and having fun with ham radio in the field rather than a purely technical manual. Now, I want to make sure, though, we're not here just to talk about the book. We want to talk about Walt, his experiences, and everything else. So I have 2 guests with me tonight. The first is Joe, WAGEX, and the second is Tom, NR8Z. So, Joe, if you want to kick it off, hand it over to Tom, and then, Tom, you can hand it to Walt.
Well, that's good. And welcome to the podcast, Walt and Tom. Tom's been on with us before, but first time for Walt. I got started when I was a teenager. I was an SWL. My uncle got me started back then. And I'll never forget in 1955, I bought a Helicopter SX100, brand new. And man, you talking about a kid with a smile on his face. I certainly had it. So took my technician license and came up through the ranks. Been on 62 D expeditions, some big, some small, and loved every minute of it. And certainly interesting to hear Walt talk about antennas tonight. So, Tom, how'd you get started?
Hey, thanks, Joe. Actually, it turns out this year is my 50th anniversary in amateur radio.
Wow.
I started before I was born, and uh, but yeah, so I started out to me, radio was just magic, and I'm really into DXing, some contesting, and I love to get out in the field and operate portable. I did a number of 1B battery field days. I thought that was a lot of fun with my tent and my dipole up in the air on a fiberglass pole. And I get a little chance to do POTA. I hope to do more of that. I now live near more national parks and state parks. So thanks. So Walt, over to you.
Well, how did I begin this? I started in I'll call it the radio hobby, not really a ham. Joe was saying he started as an SWL guy. I started somewhat similar to that. I started out as a AM broadcast medium wave DXer at the age of 8 on my 8th birthday, which would have been 1970. So I'm old. I got an AM radio, and where we lived at, I lived in a house that overlooked the beach. It was really cool. It was a tough life as a kid, but we had a road in front of us, and across the road was the beach, and I was there. So I would my bedroom was up on the second floor, and as 8 and 9 year olds back then, you're not supposed. Your mom tells you don't listen to your radio, and I'd have my headphone in, one little headphone in, and I'd lay there all night spinning the dial. And I really became obsessed with listening to long distance stations. Now, 1970, you guys remember, AM radio was amazing. The big, the 50,000 watts. Like, you guys are in the Midwest. You know how many times in the middle of the night as a kid I listened to Comet Hockey on Whoa, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah, that's right.
I was heavily into that, and so it was just I got the bug of really the DX bug from a listener, trying to get as much as I could. And as time went on, man, and then I started understanding, okay, I took a bunch of pennies and I wrapped all these copper pennies and taped them to a board and put a wire to it. And I noticed, hey, the signal got better. So as primitive as that was, I started getting in, and then I checked out a book at school library and built a loop, for my AM radio or whatever. But one thing that really hit me is really the basis of who I am now as a ham was I lived right on salt water. I would look out my window and I was probably 50 yards from salt water. My grandparents were farmers inland in North Carolina, and I would spend all my summers there, and I would go there, take my radio with me. And at night we could listen to WSM and the Grand Ole Opry and all that. My granddad would hear it. But I noticed that, man, it's just not as good here inland as it was back home. And so something that was like, there just must be something magical about it. Then I'd spend the night with a friend across town that would be away from the water, take my radio, and it wouldn't happen. And I realized that there was something kind of magical about being on top of salt water and DXing. So I kind of learned that at a real early age, 8, 9 years old. So then at age 12, the SWL thing hit me. I went to Radio Shack and got the Globe Patrol kit, and at 12 years old, built my first shortwave radio. I'm still excited about it, and that was 1974. So we're talking 51 years later. I still get giddy when I remember that moment of putting the battery in it and turning the switch, and it worked. You know what I mean? After you built the kit.
Yeah.
So that got me in the bug. So I did a lot. I was heavily as a kid into medium wave, DXing, shortwave listening, because back then, man, it was it was the Cold War, and it was kind of like, oh, I'm listening to Radio Moscow and Radio Prague, and you were like listening to the other side of the Iron Curtain. And then Saturday nights, I'd listen to DX Jukebox on Radio Netherlands and HCJB, Quito, Ecuador. I was really into shortwave, and I said, I'm gonna get my ham license. So I went to a couple of classes at club and started learning code. I was going to get the 5 words per minute down and get my novice. And then the biggest mistake that ever happened to me per se was I got a CB radio. And it was like I was having so much fun with voice that I just kind of quit learning the code and got into the 11-meter bug and honestly stayed with it. I mean, as big as it was in the 70s, as it went away, I still kind of stayed with it and did that and didn't really become a ham until, then life hit me, you know what I mean? Went to college, worked, kids and all that stuff. And then as my son, we got empty nest here, um, you know, 6 years ago, I decided I'm gonna get my ham taken. I should have done it a long time ago. And there you go. So I've been a radio hobbyist for a long time, but I've actually only really been a ham for, half a decade.
Yeah.
And here I am now. You know what I mean? But
Wow.
all that I learned over time I mean, if I had $1 for every dipole I built for shortwave and just stuff experimenting loops with AM and then I wasn't a bad boy. I wasn't that guy that had the linear amplifiers and was all that on 11 meters. But I built stuff. Beams and stuff like that for 11 meters over the years. So I always had kind of an interest in antennas as well. But now I kind of like, all right, it's time to like get straight, do the deep dive or whatever, and that's where I'm at now in life and just loving it.
I had some relatives who lived in Morrow, Ohio, which isn't too far from WLW. And in the 50s and early 60s, when they ran 500,000 watts, they could hear the bed springs would resonate and they could hear that. So it was like, holy smokes. Now, Tom, you were in the Midwest for so long, but you've been telling me how different the propagation is on the East Coast. It's like you have a 9 or 12 dB gain over us now, I think, don't you?
Yeah, so I get to spend summers in Massachusetts on Cape Cod surrounded by saltwater, and it's incredibly different from Cincinnati. With low power, especially I have Russians calling me over the pole. It's this all water route, and it's you really don't realize how tough we have it in the Great Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
So,
true. I tell you, just Saturday morning, I do this a lot. I go out on the beach here, Virginia Beach, and throw up an antenna. I threw up just a telescopic whip quarter wave vertical, and I do this early in the mornings all the time. And I talk to Australia like it's nothing. I'm 5'7", 5'8", 5'9" with 20 watts. I sometimes just for the heck of it, I'll go out there I'll just take my little 5 watt QRP rig and work Australia from the beach. And that's the blessing of being right on top of the Atlantic Ocean. It's amazing.
wow.
Yes.
So I couldn't tell from your webpage. Do you have more of an interest in DX or CW or sideband or just kind of all of it or
Just I'm a DA. I'm a sideband DXer. I
okay.
mean, it's like I know a lot of people like with the book and the antennas and everything. It's like, man, well, you should go heavier into POTA, whatever. There's nothing wrong with POTA. That's great, but I like the thrill of getting that station that just something you didn't expect. I love DXing. I'm not a contester either. I'll dabble in a contest. I'll keep the log or whatever, but I'm not going for a win or anything. But I've had people say, if you contested more, got more into it, you'd make more contacts. I go, yeah, that's true. But during a contest, I make a lot of contacts anyway, and I get more of a thrill on a Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock sitting on the beach making a contact with 5 watts in Australia than I do banging all the ones in the contest when everyone's trying to do it. That's
Yeah.
kind of so that's what I like about DX. I like maybe still a kid in me. I like that wildness, that wow factor is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just made that contact. I still feel that way.
So
I think being portable, putting up an antenna, and then working people takes you back to those days of building a radio, and then it suddenly works, right? When you get
Right. It does. It does.
so what would you think the biggest thing you've come away with that surprised you about it? And we'll get into the book and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
you've built so many antennas. Is there like one or two things that you've come out of this like, man, I every time this happens, I'm always surprised that I can get something that's non-resonant to radiate or ground plane. Is there just something about it where maybe you didn't understand it? Now it's boom. I can't believe this works, but it does, and now I know how.
Yeah, and I think if there's one thing I've learned from building a lot of different antennas is, and there's debate. Everyone's got their feeling on this, whatever. There's guys that I only use resonant antennas, or I only, I don't, I horizontal, not vertical. The whole argument that we're humans. We're always going to have our preferences or whatever. But I think the one thing I've learned by building a lot of different, like I like to experiment with a different antenna all the time. I have my favorites, but the one thing I've learned is it's not so much the resonance for a DXer. It's like with verticals, which 90% of the antennas I build are verticals, but the antenna itself is in its length changes the takeoff angle. And to me, that's something that wows me. I've got an antenna, it's in the book, that I call it the Coastal 20.
Yeah.
That's not exactly that requires a tuner. It's lossy, it's got a lot of loss or whatever. But it's kind of an off-center fed vertical, and the upper driven element of it is 17 and a half feet, which is kind of like a 5/8 of a wavelength almost on 10. It's a little bit more than a quarter wave on 20. But if you're working and you're sitting on the beach or wherever you're portable and you're kind of bouncing from 20, 17, 15, 12, 10, you want to go across the bands, and you got a tuner that'll tune that antenna, it's amazing how much DX you can work with an antenna like that because of the takeoff angle of that vertical. For me, my situation, that's the other thing I tell everybody too, is like, look, don't think that you're going to build this antenna in the middle of Arkansas and have the results that I do.
Right.
This antenna is for my environment, and that's kind of what one thing I've noticed too. But yeah, so I think for me the thing that always surprises me is sometimes the antenna you think is going to be the DX monster, best thing in the world, isn't, and that antenna that's not supposed to work, not supposed to be resonant, not supposed to happen. Next thing you know, you key the mic and I'm working long path to ZL. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Well, Joe has always, kind of drilled into me. I don't care how dead the band is. If you don't call CQ, no one, you're not going to work anybody. It's like,
Right.
I can't, if I don't cast, I'm never going to catch a fish. Right. So I've changed that a lot because he keeps, telling me that. And Joe, you had a different experience in the Caribbean than in Ohio also, right?
Oh my God, yeah. On all the trips I've been on, islands and whatever, yeah, that salt water is the trick, without a doubt. I've been into the Bahamas, and I'll put up a 6 meter wire and hang it on the gutter of our house. So it's only, hell, 8, 9 feet in the air, and work JA's big pileups. And it just amazes me what you can do with a piece of wire. I've never tried it since I'm a little old farm boy. I need to get some barbed wire and try that, but I've never done that before.
Little,
But,
well, the barbed wire, would that be like little radiators every few
yeah,
years?
Capacity hats, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Walt, if you were suddenly you found yourself in a very nice HOA with deed restrictions and stuff like that, what do you still think there's opportunities to put up antennas and get on the air?
I do. As a matter of fact, I'm in an HOA situation right now. I've got a decent enough antenna out the back. Fortunately, where I'm at, I'm in a historic district in Portsmouth, Virginia, right in the Norfolk Harbor, and our house was built in the 1800s. And I'm up on the third, our condo's the top floor, and out the back we have an escape window and an escape hatch and ladder up there. So I'm not supposed to have an antenna, but I just went and got the Sigma Eurocom fiberglass vertical, no radial, the one everyone says is a dummy load, and I hooked it on the back there. And but what I did is I ran a wire from it over and screwed it into the metal roof underneath it. I mean, I think if you're creative enough, there's always a way. You know what I mean? In an HOA situation, for sure.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
So what got you into the coastal waves and wires, into the whole, gee, I've got all this great energy. And by the way, the ones that I've gone through, you really get jazzed up. And I'll put a link in the show notes. But I watch that and I think, we got to go visit Karen's relatives on the East Coast and stop down and see Tom and get on the air from out there. So what kind of got you into doing that?
Well, I mean, for one, I'll tell you, this is how my channel started. So I had been a ham for a couple years, and and made the big mistake. Now I have a Facebook page for my channel. I know you do. I actually follow you, and but I was on, all these antenna building and whatever, and everybody's got an opinion. And I learned a long time ago that if you want to get frustrated and aggravated, get into a conversation on Facebook. So I was. I'm I work I'm an engineer. I'm a design engineer, and I was getting ready, and I go on site when we're building a project. I'm the guy that goes on site and stays there for a month to a year. I mean, I went to Poland. I was back and forth for 2 years, but I was getting ready to go to Kauai. And this is during the COVID time too. So it was really rough. I knew once I got to Kauai, it was going to be to work, to the hotel, and that was it. But I could get out on the beach, and I was at the time, because I'm a design engineer. I sketch. That's where the book comes from. I've always sketched up the antenna before I build it, and and I would snap it and put it on on some of these Facebook pages or whatever. Hey, I'm going to build this. I'm going to be in Kauai for a month. I think while I'm out there, I'm going to build this thing. Well, I was going to build a vertical antenna, quarter-wave vertical, and just get out there. All I could take with me, space-wise, was a little Xiegu X5105. So the 5-watt, had the battery in it and everything. I was just going to use it as a walkie-talkie and build antennas while I was there. So I built this thing and I posted it, and it was like I stabbed somebody. You know what I mean? It was like I got so much hate from people. Like,
Really?
build a dipole. Now you got to realize too, we're in solar. We're still in solar minimum. You know what I mean? This is like 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. We're not where we're at now, and everyone's going. You're not going to work 5 watts with any antenna on Kauai. You're out in the middle of the Pacific. Good luck with that. You might work some locals there, in the islands, whatever. And they're like, and this one guy, 1 or 2 guys, they kind of ganged up on me, were just beating me up on the whole vertical versus build a dipole thing. So I said, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start a YouTube, get an account. I'm going to go there and film it, and I'm going to come back and post my results on this YouTube.
Good for you.
So I get there, I build the antenna. I'm sitting there, and I did it just like I had done enough research. I built had the vertical. When I took a crappie pole, squid pole, whatever, with me.
Yep.
And when I got there, I went to the Walmart on the island of Kauai and bought like a painter's stick, and I drove it in the ground, and I duct taped the pole to it. It was primitive, but I got it up. I had a ballon with me, and I threw one. That was the other thing that I said. I told everybody I was only going to use one counterpoise wire. I threw the one counterpoise wire into the wet sand right at the edge of the Pacific Ocean. And I sat there with that little walkie-talkie, and it's like this first contact was a guy on the Big Island, and he's like, "You're blowing my doors off. You're 10 over." And I'm like, wow. It was, from Kauai all the way to the Big Island, it was a long ways, right? So I said, all right, thinking. I'm hunting. I'm not calling CQ. I'm kind of tall, 20 meters. I dialed down the dial a little bit, and on 20, and I hear this signal, and it's a ZL. And I'm like, and at the time I'm thinking, I've only been a ham for a year or so. I'm like, ZL, oh, that's New Zealand. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm in the Pacific, but it's a long ways from Kauai to New Zealand. Like, so I go, I give him the old, Kilo 4, Oscar Golf Oscar, and he comes back, he goes, Kilo 4. I was like, wow, oh my gosh, I just made, so, and then just kept going and going, and I put it into a video, and the bug bit me. I was like, man, that was so much fun. It was even more fun when I put the video together and put it on the Facebook page. It was like, nah, 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 nah. You know what I mean? It was a great feeling, and but the experience of doing that, being on the beach. Of course, I was in a cool place. It was COVID. I couldn't do nothing but work, hotel room, beach, but it was cool. And the bug bit me, and when I got back to Virginia Beach, I started all right, what antenna can I build next? What can I do next? And it just took off, and I kept sketching them up and building them, and then I couldn't believe it. The channel took off. I think it was three or 3.5 months in, I had 1,000 subs. I was like, holy, and then it just snowballed from there.
Yeah.
And it was
It's fun to
So,
watch, and your personality and passion come through. Go ahead, Joe.
so Walt, for our listeners, if we have a new ham that's going to listen to this podcast, and he or she needs to get on the air, what would you suggest they build?
I mean, this goes against everything that I do, and I tell this to every new ham. This is, I think, this is the gateway drug to all antennas. It's just go get, as cliche as it sounds, get an infrared half wave up that's multi-band. You know, you can bounce around. It's resonant. It's a great antenna to start with. If you're, especially if you're not near the ocean. If you live like I do, you know, I could walk. We could take a 5 minute break. I could walk down to the beach and back where I'm sitting right now. And if you live that close, then build a quarter wave vertical and go from there. You know what I mean? And that's what I would tell a new hand.
Wow.
The old saying, what is it? Horizontal by land, vertical by sea. You know,
Yeah.
that's where that's it.
That's good. I've not heard that. So I may need some help with my antenna design because I have so 3 years ago, I put up a hex beam about 30 feet up in a clearing in the woods, right? So 5 weeks ago, we had a storm come through and it knocked a big giant branch and it just tore half of that hex beam down. It bent the
Oh.
push-up mast. I took the whole thing down, worked hard to get it back up quickly. I got it up last week in time for the Ohio QSO party. And my wife called me Friday and said, it sounded like a gun just went off in the backyard. And I look out and your antenna's bent over. Well, another giant branch had fallen. This was a
Oh,
50-foot
Hey,
branch and just snapped the other half of this hex beam off. So
Oh.
I need something. If I can put a cone over it to protect it and still, so just next time you're sketching, just put something together for me. And so I went through the sketchbook and I really, it didn't feel like an antenna book to me. It felt like, wow, these are really cool ideas. I'm in a lab. I'm in your basement working on stuff. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and that was. So how many of the ones in here do you still have, or are you just those are done and now you're still evolving?
I still have them. I like there's, geez, I have some plastic Gladlock bags full of wires that I keep them. Every once in a while I'll go out and try. I'll get a new radio and I'll say, you know, I like to use that radio. When I say new, cheap radio, I'm into cheap little radios, and I'll get it and I'll say, you know what, this would pair great with that antenna. Let's go to the beach and try it. So most of them, or pretty much all of them, I have. Um, you know, in some form or another. I have all the balance and ununs and everything, you know, they're in the collection. I could build any one of those antennas in the book really quick.
Yeah.
So for sure.
So
Yeah, I loved it when
go
you
ahead,
go to
Tom.
the beach and strip the wire and build it right there. I always have to build it at home, but why not build it right there on the beach?
Well, I tell you how that came about. I always built them at home and then went to the beach, and I would go, you know, I would start out with my little intro. It goes, hey, today we're going to build a, you know, 5/8 wave for the 10-meter band. Stick around. Boom. And then my little music comes on and come back and I've already taped it there. And I go, well, here it is, you know, and people were like going, we want to know how to build it. I'm thinking to myself, if you can't take a tape measure and measure a piece of wire, clip it and cut it. I said, but okay, let's do it. So I started kind of evolving a little bit more, and I've actually got like 2 or 3 videos where I go right down to opening the box of wire and pulling it out, measuring it. So I always tell them take 1 extra inch or 25 millimeters extra, and like leave it there, and then we're going to strip that and twist the wire, and I kind of go through it that way. I think that's boring, but people want to see that, so I just added it in the videos.
You know what I think it is? Well, I don't think it's a matter of, I mean, they know how to cut wire, but I think they like to watch your process. I mean, I think that's, and Joe, where were you that you built, didn't you build a beam? You guys went in and bought PVC tubing and then just stretched
yes,
wire on top of it?
we were up in Halifax. We was going to Sable Island. And long story, but we lost the 6 meter beam that was in a pelican case. And the three of us were 6 meter operators along with everything else, all the other bands. So we did not have six meters, and we really wanted it. So we went to the hardware store and we bought a bunch of 1/2 inch PVC, all the couplings and elbows and all that junk, and put it together. And then we taped wire for the elements across the PVC.
Love
And
it.
hell, we worked around the world on it. Yeah.
See, that's what I like to do. That right there. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
very
what
good.
about a fan dipole, Walt? Have you ever built one?
I haven't. I I love the idea of them. I've seen them. I've read about them, investigated. It's one of I've got still a list of antennas I want to build. That's one of them that's on it. Um, I try a lot of times. People will say I want to see this, or the one that always is a surefire way that I'm not going to build it is they'll go like you know Joe YouTuber last week he did this. Why don't you do that too? Well, and I'm like, I get kind of a little frustrated when I build an antenna and then 3 days later, suddenly another YouTuber is building the same antenna. It's like I don't want
Oh,
to do that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I do kind of do that, but I like that's on the list, the fan dipole. One of the things I'm trying to I'm waiting, as we all know, band conditions. We're coming out of the summer doldrums, and for me, operating mostly on the beach. Now is not the time of the year for me to go out on the beach and build some big elaborate antenna because everyone's walking all over me and everything else. But as we get into fall and things are going, I've got a list of antennas, and we've been. I actually we're talking about David Minster. He and I have been talking about it. I kind of want to take the sketches and the channel and another wave over the next few months of building different stuff. I want to. I've got some sketches I've been putting together. I want to put a director. I want to put a vertical up with a director on it and a parasitic director, a three element vertical. I've got some ideas of taking a inverted V dipole and then put an inverted V director in front of it. You know what I mean? Try to build some kind of like beamish type antennas. And like you said, when you went and got PVC or whatever, kind of stirring up some ideas to do some things like that as well on the channel. So I'm just waiting for the weather to get cool, for people to get off of my beach so I can get out there and build these things.
So do you like inverted V's, Walt?
I do. I built the last inverted V I built was I was in Poland for 2 years and operating over there, and I built one. I had a backyard there, which I don't have here. So antennas like that I built out in the backyard, and I enjoyed the inverted V. I think the one I built was a small one that was for 10 meters. Was it? Or maybe built one for 20 as well. But yeah, I built a 20-meter inverted V as well while I was there, and I enjoyed it because one of the cool things about operating in Poland, I did it for a little over 2 years. I was working there. I'd go there for 2 months. I'd come back to the States for 2 months, and then I'd go back. Me and another guy were flip-flopping, which the easy thing and what worked out for me is it reset my CEPT travel agreement with Poland to operate as, I didn't have to get a Polish license. I just operated as Sierra Papa stroke K4OGO. But while I was there, the cool thing about building like inverted V's and slopers and stuff like that was I I knew the position of the backyard and where the rest of Europe was around me. So I could build an antenna and start making contacts. I could always tell which, where I didn't even have to model the antenna. I knew exactly where the lobe was because, Europe is so, it's different. I tell people that all the time too. And one of the best things that ever happened to me as a ham radio operator, just strictly as being an operator, was to operate in Europe as an American for 2 years and experience the difference. Like 40-meter band over there, nothing like the 40-meter band here. I'm not talking about propagation. I'm just talking about operations. Like over there, 40 meters is kind of like 20. It's like hit, let's make a contact. Thank you, 73. You're 5'9", going to the next guy. You go 40 meters in the States, you're like going around, if like me, you're hunting. It's like net check in, net check in, net check in,
Yeah.
7200, get off of there, net check in, net check. It's just how it is. So that was a pretty cool experience too, like there. But yeah, getting back, we were talking about with antennas though and inverted V's. The ones I built there, I'd build it and then I would twist it around and aim it in a different direction. And I kind of saw that this was learning by doing, is that as I changed the angle of the inverted V as I brought it in, it made it omnidirectional. Kind of when I got like below 70 degrees or whatever, I all of a sudden it was just like same signal reports or whatever in the skip zones that I was hitting around me. And that's what was really cool about playing with the antenna that way. I mean, we can all model something and run it through and get a a chart and get it printed out or whatever. But what a cool thing for me was once again I was there on work, so I would work during the day and play radio all night every day afternoon. So I did it a lot, and that experience of feeling it, building the antenna, moving it around, knowing where you were on the map and what was going on around me was that was a lot of fun.
So do you use RBN at all, the reverse beacon network, to kind of use different antennas and compare them, or?
I don't. I'm primitive. I use the key of the mic and see where it goes.
Yeah,
So,
well,
yeah.
that's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I did look in the book, and you do have a dipole in there. So hats
yeah.
off to you. You've got all these other antennas. The one that caught my eye, though, and I'm not going to say it right, it's the Rybakov antenna.
Rybakov.
Why did that catch my eye? That just seems different, and I'm
That's
not sure what it is.
I first built that antenna. It's basically a random wire antenna. It's 25 feet or 7.6 meter vertical, 4-to-1 unknown on it, and a whatever you want to put underneath it for counterpoise wires and for counterpoise ground plane. What was really cool about that antenna was there was an Italian ham, and I think it was around the late 90s, early 2000s. Italy had a restriction on antennas and what you could do and your decibels out there. I mean, the Italians are just like over the top with it, you know what I mean? And this guy designed this antenna to fit within the Italian rules at the time as a multi-band antenna from 40 to 6 meters. And if you look at it and you analyze it, it gets down there in the from 40 to 20 whatever, but it's still like a 3-to-1, 3.5-to-1. You have to use a tuner to get it in. But like as we were talking about earlier, the takeoff angles were just unbelievable for those bands. And so this Italian guy designed this antenna, or he takes credit for it, wrote a paper on it. His wife was Russian, and she said it looked like a fishing pole. Well, Rybakov in Russian is fishing or fishing pole or fish or whatever. Rybakov is or fisherman. So he named it the Rybakov from his Russian wife. He then moved to Africa. I forget what his call sign was. So he was using this antenna in Africa. When I came across I don't know if it was RSGB or wherever, I found this paper on this antenna and built it in the backyard in Poland. So I'm like, this is the most international antenna I've ever used. It's designed by an Italian who lives in Africa with a Russian wife, and I'm in Poland as an American using the Rybakov antenna. But actually, a lot of people, after I built that, I found one other ham that had stumbled across it like me a few years back. That's Tim, G5TM. He's a YouTuber over in the UK, and he and I struck a friendship up kind of over that antenna. And we were talking about, he used it, I used it, and then I did a video on it, and now it's kind of gotten pretty popular. The Coffee and Ham Radio guys have they're building it now, their company, and they're calling it the Poseidon antenna, which, the Poseidon, Rybakov fish, whatever. But yeah, it got pretty popular. But at the end of the day, it's just a 25-foot piece of wire with a 4-to-1 under it, and that's all it is.
I'm not sure maybe it was the excellent drawing or something, but something caught my eye, and I had to read it. So
that could replace your hex beam. You should try it in the back.
Maybe I should. and it'd be much easier to put back up when the branches break.
That's right.
And the branches might miss it. It's harder to hit.
That's Tom. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay. So one of the things that I don't have a definite opinion on, which is rare, is radials. And when I have a vertical here, and thank goodness I do, and it performs really well. And I have to say, maybe it's equally radiating and equally receiving poorly in all directions. I don't care. I'm able to work and out. But at the time I put it in, which is 11 years ago, it was like you put down as many radials as you can of varying lengths, et cetera, et cetera. Have you learned anything that would tell you that's not the way to do it, or what would be your rule of thumb on on radials or counterpoises?
My rule of thumb is they're the most important part of the antenna, as far as I'm concerned, because you can look. There's a map. It's in the book. There's the map there that the FCC puts out on ground conductivity. At the end of the day, when everyone says try raised radials. I'm like, there's a reason why I don't like raised radials. I like them on the ground. It's because radio stations across North America, the AM stations, they have this amazing radial system that's like 5 or 6 inches under the dirt all around their antennas. And but if you look at the map of the U.S. and in the conductivity of the soil is anywhere from what they call like 2 millisiemens per meter to 30 millisiemens per meter for conductivity on it. And then you go over to salt water and it's 5,000. So if it's one of the secret to what is called the saltwater amplifier. So the surface of the ground and what happens, and this is another thing. Like when I was in Poland, I would build an antenna and I would try to get like 8, 9, 16 wires, as many as I could down on the ground and get that good conductive, ground plane underneath me. When I go to the beach, if I get one or two out on top of that water, I'm happy because I call it like remember the Bounty paper towel, the quicker picker upper.
Yeah.
It's absorbing. You know what I mean? That's the radials are kind of the absorbing the ground below you to build the ground plane. And if you put on dirt, there you go, or whatever. But if you put one wire on top of the salt water, you got the quicker picker upper. You know what I mean? You got a heck of a ground plane. And it's one of the things that's really, it's caused me some grief with people because they don't stop and listen to what I'm trying to sell. I'm not even trying to sell it, but what I'm trying to tell them that's going on with salt water is they're like, I took a fishing line and I put my counterpoise in, I threw it out there and got it in the water as deep as I could or whatever. And I'm like, no. Like if I know it's going to be on top of water, I get a pool noodle. The whole idea is to have the counterpoise wire floating on top. It's the surface. It's just like you don't bury your counterpoise wires 3 feet into the ground. It's the same thing with the salt water. It's that surface is the ground plane. And for me, I'm going to be the biggest proponent of counterpoise wires there are because that's what makes coastal waves and wires like that. It's all about the counterpoise wires in the ground plane.
Wow. Very, very cool. Very interesting.
So
Go ahead.
Walter, should they be on top of the ground or like the commercial stations, 5 or 6 inches in the ground?
Well, I mean, I live in an HOA where I can't have counterpoise wires in my backyard. So I'm a portable guy and I just throw them on top, because I'm going to be out there for an hour or two or whatever. I won't be here forever. My wife and I have a home that her mom's living in. It's got a nice big backyard in it. When we finally move in with her mom and start taking care of her there, and I have that, you guys hear my cat crying over here, but if that happens, I will probably, if you watch Callum, DX Commander, he staples them in and gets them just in the dirt and then lets the grass kind of take them over. It's probably what I would do, but when I'm
I
out
got a lot of
portable,
verticals, and that's the way mine are.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, I do the same thing, and they disappear within a year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, Tom, if we put a saltwater motor on my house, do you think that would help?
It can't hurt, Bill.
No, it can't hurt. So you've got all these great ideas. You've got this podcast, this YouTube channel that's really, really popular. And I 30 years ago wrote a book on coaching youth basketball. So I know how much it takes. You're working with editors, you're putting stuff together, you're cleaning it up, and it is a labor of love, right? So what got you to switch gears and say, I need to publish this? I'm glad you did, but what made you jump from getting your information out electronically to actually putting something in a book?
Well, it's funny. We were talking about David Minster. I mean, he's a big part of this equation. So he's been a subscriber to my channel for quite a while, and we just created a friendship. And I was a little over a year and a half ago, I was just talking on one of my, hey, channel update or whatever. And I said, hey, I know a lot of you guys have been hitting me up saying you want all these sketches that I've been doing, that I've been sharing on the channel, whatever. Can I put them all together? I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put together, just give me some time. I'll put together a PDF and put them all together, and I'll get them out there somehow. I said, I'll see what I can do. I'll put a little book together, and we'll get it out as soon as I can. That was like, I posted that video like at Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Monday morning, my phone rang, and it was the ARRL. I got a caller ID. I'm like, uh-oh, what are they calling me for? You know what I mean? Like,
What I do now, right?
What I do now? What I do now? So, and I picked it. I answered, and it was Mark Dirks, who works for David, and Mark, one of the editors there, and he said, "Hey, David told me to call you. He said that you were talking about putting these sketches out." He goes, "We would really love to publish all of that in a book and put a book together for you. What do you think about that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know what I mean. The lead, yeah. This is like, here, I'm gonna throw a for free PDF file out there, or I can have something that's going to live forever as an ARRL publication." So I said, "Yeah." We went back and forth a little bit. The food that's in it and the tales that are in it or whatever were 100%. David he was adamant. "Walt, we want the book to be about you as well as the antennas." He goes, "Love your channel. I want your channel to be in the book. I want you stopping at a dive on the side of the road and slurping a dozen oysters being in the book as well." I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." And there we go.
Wow. It is really, it's very interesting to go from, an antenna to like the page I opened here after the fisherman's antenna, the Rybakoff. What do we got here? The crawfish boil at Oyster Bar and Seafood at the French Market, New Orleans.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
can read it. It's just really cool. It breaks it up and gives you. So as you go through this, I mean, these antennas are really varied. So are you sitting one day and saying, boy, here's this vertical, but if I did this and this, let's see what that would do. And then is that how you've kind of come up with all
I
these
do.
designs?
I do. Just like I was talking about a minute ago. This just came yesterday to me. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to build a two element. I've kind of done. I deep dive things. I read everything I can. I do, like, Dr. Google everything I can. You know what I mean? Read what I can. But as we're getting close, as 10 meters is getting ready to open back up, and which means more elaborate antennas that are smaller and easier to build. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm going to build a two element vertical for 10-meter band, because I get both of them on like my 5-meter or 7-meter poles or whatever. I was like, but I just love operating on 20 meters. That's really my big DX band. It's like, I don't have a pole big enough to do it on. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what? I wonder what it would be like if I built an inverted V and then put a director in front of that. That just something just came to me. Then I started looking for it, and there's been a couple guys that have tinkered and toyed with it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sketch that up and go build it. So stuff like that, just being a complete antenna nerd. And then while I should be working, I drift off over to the internet for 30 minutes and look up something, you know what I mean? And then there you go.
Wow. So I've been kicking around. I have a K6MM has this 160-meter vertical, and it's basically three sections of PVC that are inside of each other for a total length of about 30 feet. And you just take wire, basically half wave, and you wind it a half inch apart all the way to the top. And I've been thinking, I wonder if I could phase those, make another one. I just haven't gotten the energy together to say, okay, I got to do that. 160 meters is just not trivial.
Yeah, it's
And
tough.
I didn't notice anything in here tailored for 160. That'd be tough to put on the beach, wouldn't it?
I think you could. I think you might try. I didn't try it, but I wonder if you could do it with the Slinky. The Slinky antenna, that giant Slinky. I'd have to go back and remember how much wire that is. But I built it the way you're talking about. I took a full wavelength, so I took little over 20 meters of wire and wrapped it around while I was in Poland. I have a video on it, and I worked from Poland. I was working the States um, with 20 watts from Poland in the backyard with that antenna on 20. So it's a great idea. You should do it. You got me thinking now.
So
Everyone said, "Walt, you gotta make a top band antenna." So what I was thinking about doing is just cheating. By cheating, I mean wait until there's a 160 contest. You know what I mean? Because that's when
Yeah.
you're going to make that, and then do it, and then try it then.
Well, the 160 contests I've been in, I've done okay. But what I really liked is guys will stop and in the middle of a contest, they'll say, "Boy, you're really loud here. What are you running?" Or they may ask, "I've never worked you before. What's your equipment look like?" And I've really, they call it the gentleman's band. I've really found them to be very accommodating, very nice. So that might be an interesting approach. Let us know how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see. Or another thing I've done, I took two slinkies. This isn't in the book, but I took two slinkies and a 9-to-1 ballon and a 10-meter long DX commander pole, and I went all the way to the top of a parking garage, and I got it up. I was in my Jeep. I got a flagpole holder in the Jeep, so I put I taped the ballon about midway up the pole, and then took a slinky all the other. And the pole was just like, those air things you see at gas stations, it looked like that the whole time. But I was making some amazing DX contacts with that. So I think if I could get a bigger, stronger pole, that might be the thing to try too. Maybe a vertical slinky dipole for 160 might be worth the try.
If you use two slinkies, you could maybe get them going at different times.
I know, right?
Like a push-pull antenna,
Yeah.
I don't overcome any fading. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I just did a second video on this. I just 3 years ago I built this antenna, another antenna I built in Poland, and we were talking about this ideas coming to me. I had been in Poland for 2 months, and when I was trying to grow the channel at the time. So before I go, I'm going to be there 8 weeks. I would sketch out and have 8 different antenna ideas while I was there. And those would be because I was in a backyard, most of them would be like an infed or a random wire, length or whatever, or an inverted L. I did all kind of just whatever I could think of. I wanted to do it, but I got extended out there like a week and a half, and I was out of ideas. And I'm sitting there like on a Friday afternoon. I'm sitting in the office at the base I was working on in Poland. Everybody was gone but me. I was trying to finish up. And I looked, and everyone's desk, we were all engineers, all had these 5-meter tape measures that we were using laying on their desk. I was like, I got an idea. Because I had a pole. I had a big pole with me. So I grabbed everybody's tape measures. I was like, yeah, I'll explain later. I went back to the house that afternoon. I got some speaker wire, and I put little leads on each one of them. And I had a banana clip at the bottom. I measured it out perfectly, and I used mine to do this because I scraped the paint off of it. I took an alligator clip, and I made a quarter wave vertical with like 6 radials laying on the ground. And the whole thing, it was like 7 tape measures that I made it. And it was funny one of the first contacts, I was in Poland and talked to a guy in the UK, and it's in the video actually. He goes, all right, tell me what antenna you're really using, because there's no way you're talking to me on tape measures. And then the next morning I get up and I did a long path from Poland to VK4KA, my friend Corey. Now, we cheated because we're friends on Facebook. I said, Corey, you won't believe this antenna that I built. And he has a Moxon, 20-meter Moxon. So he aimed his Moxon long path. And I said, okay, I'm going down. I went and cut the radio on, and boom, man, he got me and I got him, and it was awesome. Like I talked long path from Poland to Australia, to Brisbane, Australia, on 7 tape measures, 20 meters.
You know who you're reminding of? We had a podcast with Tom Vincent, NY0V, and it was all about Amelia Earhart and trying to locate her and all this other cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But he kept talking about the culture at Collins Radio, and if they ran into an insurmountable problem, they said, somebody would say, well, we can't do that because it's impossible. And then the team lead would say, okay, let's assume it isn't impossible. What would you need? And it sounds like that's kind of your approach. Like, oh, okay, I got this room. What here can I use and what do I need? So
yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's just try it. Yeah. That's half the hobby. To me, that's the fun part of the hobby. You know what I mean? It's like making something work that's not supposed to work.
Wow, very cool. Really, really good stuff. Go,
I got
Joe.
a question, Bill. So Walt, Bill mentioned a while ago, have different lengths of radio wires under your vertical. So should they all be the same length, or like Bill suggests, multiple lengths?
I think multiple lengths. When it gets down on the ground, it doesn't matter. From what I understand, and like somebody, if you can prove me wrong, prove me wrong. But from what I understand, it's just getting as much wire as you can on the ground. Like I said earlier, it's the quicker picker up or get that thing on the ground, absorbing up that, coupling with that, that dirt and make it happen. And that's, kind of from everything I've read from, Rudy Severance. So if you guys read any of his stuff, I know he's got a lot of antenna stuff out there. That was his. I've read a lot of things that he said about ground planes and radials and counterpoise wires, and there's a point to where there's too much. You know what I mean? And then, but it's, if would let's just say 8 5-meter long radials be better than 4 10-meter long radials? It doesn't matter. It's just what you can get on the ground.
Yeah, you need wire.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
is
so
that
unless you're in the middle of a big open field, you end up making compromises often anyway, right? The tree that's in the way, the rock, whatever.
So have you ever experimented with a rhombic antenna? Because they're
That's
wire.
on the list. That's on the list. I tell you
Really?
what, I've been sketching a rhombic, and like I was joking a minute ago, but I'm serious. When everybody gets off of my beach, that's one of the antennas I'm going to build here, probably September, October. I want to build a nice V beam, a terminated V beam, and I want to build a rhombic. When I was in Rhode Island, a place I drove past it. There's nothing there but woods now, but Situate. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Situate, Rhode Island. It was they say it was the part of Rhode Island that won World War II. It was a listening post. The secret at the time, it was a secret listening post in Rhode Island, and they actually intercepted and heard Rommel's in the desert, his tank comms, and got it back over to the U.S. and picked up what was going on. And I think they diverted an attack on the Queen Mary or whatever it was down in the South Atlantic because they intercepted these radio signals. And this area was in Situate, Rhode Island, and the antennas that were there, they had all these rhombics in the woods. You know what I mean? They were basically just listening to the world, with rhombic antennas. I worked a guy, I think he was in New York, when I was in Poland, and I never forget, I woke up one morning on 40 meters and I cut the radio on, and I'm hearing, everyone's kind of normal or whatever, and I hear this one guy, and he sounded like he sounded like an FM radio broadcast radio station. He sounds so crystal clear and perfect on sideband. And I'm like, holy cow! So he's calling CQ. I finally broke through a pileup on him, and I said, man, I got to know what antenna are you using? He goes, oh, I've got a rhombic. And from that point forward, I was like, I've got to build one.
Try one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Years ago, at the beginning, I said I was a 6-meter operator and still am, but we had a guy in Bodenham, Maine. This would have been back in the early 70s, and he had a 6-meter rhombic, and he was loud, loud, loud. And somehow I came up. I think I got a hold of him. I sort of lose my memory being an old guy, but I emailed this guy, and he sent me a sketch of his antenna system. But I never did build it. I got plenty of land to do it, but I never did.
Yeah, that'd be a great antenna to have. I'll tell you what. I mean, it's pretty much directional, but if you,
Yes.
if you're in a spot, if you could pick, a direction that you wanted to work DX in. Like for me, if I lived on a big deserted beach, my rhombic would be towards the South Pacific. You know what I mean? Because I can work Europe, but we all can from here with anything.
Yeah.
That's to me the big DX direction. I would love to have a rhombic that could get me across Polynesia, New Zealand, and Australia, and maybe even touch over into Indonesia or something. That would be a cool antenna to have. It really would.
Can you generically describe a rhombic for those that aren't familiar with that?
It's a diamond basically. It's kind of a fed. If you can see, it's fed at this end of the diamond. Different ways of feeding it with a transformer, ladder line, or whatever, and it's shaped kind of like a diamond. The ones I've been looking at have a terminator, like a terminating resistor at the forward end, which makes it directional. From what I understand, you can non-terminate them, and it makes them bi-directional from different types of rhombics, but I'd like to build one with a terminated resistor at the end that would be directional. That'd be fun. And I think I'm going to do something. Once again, it's probably going to be a 10-meter antenna because of the size and being on the beach. I'd had to make it, somewhat compact as I could. Yeah, I'd love to make one for the 40-meter band and stay up all night and work it, on the beach. But that might be that'd be hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe and Bill, do you remember the Voice of America there in Westchester? They used rhombics, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much wire they had laid underneath? I mean, it was something stupid, like 180 miles of
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole place
that
was just
for
like a
Voice of
grid of wire
America.
underneath. Yeah.
Yeah.
They would shut down the Voice of America because it was in our county here, Walt, and they would shut down, excuse me, like one night a year or something, and the local 160 guys would go over and plug in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So Tom and I are both disciples of Joe's beverage antenna system. We both installed the way he does and everything. Have you done a lot with receiving antennas, or have you been mainly focused on, bidirectional, so to speak, antennas?
I've done a lot of receiving antennas back in the day. Like I built I remember one time my mom walked out in the backyard. I must have been about 14 or 15, and she's looking all around the backyard at all the wire. I was into like square loops and all this stuff. And I remember she coming in and go, "Take that down now." And I'm like, "Why?" It's like she goes, "It's hideous. It's hideous." So when I was a kid, I did a lot of that. An antenna I never built for receive, that because I just didn't know about it back then, that I want to build now is a loop on the ground for receive. That's something that I've kind of had in the back of my mind as well. But getting back to that, for pure receive, I used to. I mean, sometimes I would go out and you talk about beverage antennas, and I would. We had some woods behind the house. I'd go out the bedroom window. I'd throw the spool of wire over one tree, take a little bend this way. I would just do all kind of silly stuff. Some of them were absolute disasters. I would get better signals when I'd take it off the radio than I would when it was connected to the socket in the back of the radio did better. But every once in a while, you play around with that and you're like, oh wow, this one's working great.
Well, it looks like over your shoulder under the on-air sign. Is that a loop?
Oh yeah, that's a commercial AM loop.
So that was kind of my next question. Is that something that because you mentioned it in the book, magnetic loops. I just didn't know how much you kind of got into that, or
just for receive. This is just a pure wire loop with a capacitor on it, variable capacitor. These are commercial, but this one will work from 530 to 1700 kilohertz. And like I said, I do a lot of medium wave DXing. Matter of fact, I took this one to Hawaii with me. I just take a little portable radio. It just couples with it, and then you tune it in. And I know when I was in Hawaii with this antenna and my little Texan portable handheld, I'd clip to it. I listened to Tonga, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, AM broadcast stations from all the way across the Pacific. And for me, like I said, being a DX, to me, that's DXing there as well. I love doing that, just medium wave DXing. And so that's my, I have built these now. And matter of fact, my wife and I've been telling her, I was like, if you go to we go to the market or whatever, if you see the big round cheese boxes and they're about ready to get rid of it, ask the guy in the back if you could take it. Because my wife's a lot better looking at me. She could like bat her eyes at the guy. Maybe he'll give her the box. So that's what I was telling her to do. I want to build a nice AM receive loop on a big round cheese box. I think that would be fun. Stuff like that. I do that as well.
He may be. Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
We use one of those antennas in a museum exhibit for kids to try radio direction finding on the local AM station.
Yeah.
You get a nice null off of that thing and you put it on a compass rose and the kids can figure out where the heck the radio station is.
Well, as I sit here right now, this is due north. I can hook a radio up to this and put it on 7,400 kilohertz. And it's called Zoomer Radio in Toronto. It's like you can probably get that on your bed springs as well. It's a strong station. When I'm pointed due north, Williamsburg, Virginia is almost due west of me, about 40, 45, 50 miles, and I can't hear it hardly at all. But when I get it next to this antenna and turn it due west, it'll null out that 50,000 watt flamethrower and this little 1,000 watt station on the same frequency in Williamsburg. I can hear it. So yeah, I do the same thing with this antenna, just kind of playing around with it. That's a lot of fun. I would see where kids would enjoy that.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember, to me, when I was a kid, the best DX I ever heard on a regular basis was on my dad's car radio. I don't know what it was about AM radios in cars, but you could very slowly tune it. And so we could go visit my uncle and aunt in New Jersey, and I could listen to the Reds broadcast at night. It was just
Yeah.
crazy, you know?
Yeah.
That's funny you say that, and it's a true statement. There is even the car radios that are out now, the AM ones with the chip in them. There's a kind of popular with the shortwave listeners now and the medium wave guys. The company's called Kudos, and it's got the three. I've got one, in DX 360 or whatever. But they took the chip and the automaker radio chip out of it and put it in a little portable. I mean, it's a pricey little radio, but you nailed it. It's the car radios were the deal. They really were. They were just built.
Yeah. I don't know if it was all the metal underneath it or I don't know what it was, but man, you could
Oh,
hear
I
stuff.
remember listening in the winter, like at Christmas, to WLW but I was in Boston, and it was they'd still be talking about the sun delays on the highways in Cincinnati, so
Oh
it
my
didn't have to
gosh.
be dark over the whole path.
Yeah.
I get WLW here all the time. 700, the big one. We can get it here in Virginia overnight. You know what I mean? Especially in the winter,
Yeah.
wintertime. I challenge you when you get up tomorrow morning. Next time you get in your car radio and it's still dark, if you're up early before the sun comes up, go all the way down to 5:30 and you'll hear it sounds like elevator music. The station on 530 kilohertz. That is a 100,000 watt station in Havana, Cuba, called Radio Encyclopedia. And I hear I do sometimes I can check propagation almost. If I'm going to the beach early in the morning to play radio and I tune over to 5:30 and it's clear, I'm like, oh, it's probably going to be a good day. You know what I mean? Because the F layer is just very reflective right now. So
Yeah, we have WCKY in Cincinnati is down there. It would be kind of tough. And my father I can remember when we had an outside aerial, he would check channel 6. And if we could get WBNS out of Columbus, 6 meters was open and he was ready to go. So that was like his spotting network, off and on. So
that was those were good days, man, when analog television was like you could you'd be tuning around every once in a while and there'd be a station that popped up on a number that wasn't in your town. We used to like the house I was telling you about that I grew up in, our front yard was the road we lived on within the beach, but the beach was due north and it's the Hampton Roads Harbor. So we're looking straight up the Chesapeake Bay. There was nothing between me and Baltimore and Philadelphia but water. And I remember sometimes in the summertime, and it was definitely sporadic-y or whatever, but we would get like the Philadelphia TV stations, and that's a long Philadelphia to Norfolk's a long way.
That's a haul,
But there was nothing between us
Yeah.
but the Chesapeake Bay, all the way straight up into the mouth of Baltimore and then up to Philly.
Yeah.
And I guess that would be I don't know if it was Troppa, if it was ducting or whatever, but we would get, I can remember on a Saturday afternoon in the summer watching a Phillies game in Virginia
wow.
back when, on analog television, which is gone now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
shame. That was pretty cool.
Well, this will make you feel old. So I recently had a bout of vertigo, and I was trying to explain to the young guys that work for me how it isn't like the room spinning, but it's like a shutter effect. I said, "Oh, let me explain this. Do you remember with TV, analog TV, sometimes the sync wasn't right, and that would roll up and back to?" And they all looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" And then I realized these guys have no idea what analog TV is. So I said,
they never knew what it was like when you go over and touch the TV and it would be perfect. And when you walk away, it would go back to doing it.
We're putting aluminum foil on. Oh, God, we sound old.
But we got to experience all that cool stuff. They didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, hats off to you for trying stuff. I mean, I just that's just terrific. I can't tell you how much I really enjoyed the book much more than just First of all, I enjoyed you, so I'm really glad you
Thank
wanted
you.
to do this, and I did want to make it more than the book, but the book is a real reflection of your personality and your passion, and it's so different than any other technical book. I think if I went, it was a double E. If I'd have had books like this in college, I would have done better, but I would have been a lot heavier because I'd have been hitting all the restaurants. But it's just terrific, and I'm going to put a link. I encourage people to get it and take a look at it, and I can't wait to see what else you got cooking there. Joe,
Well,
did I,
thanks.
did I leave anything out?
No, sir, you're doing. So how can our viewers get your book?
Couple different ways. You can go to arrl.org. It's on sale there. I mean, it's their book. Amazon. It's on Amazon. Salty Walt's portable antenna sketchbook. It's on Amazon as well. Actually, it's been battling out with the Baofeng book for number one. It's been number one, then it goes to two. The Baofeng book goes to one. We've been back and forth. So feel free to buy it on Amazon if you like the book. I can get that Baofeng guy out of my way. But yeah,
Even if we return it, you'll still get credit, right?
there you go. There you go. But yeah, it's available there. If you're watching this and you're in Europe, the RSGB is selling it as well in Europe. So it's a good way to get it over there. I know everybody talks about the tariffs and what's cost whatever. Just buy it over there. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, the RSGB has it as well.
So are you salty, Walt, because of your relationship with the ocean, or is this the nice side we're seeing? We're not seeing your salty side.
Yeah. I can get salty if you dig deep in my videos. Every once in a while, someone will tick me off in the comments, and I'm like, "All right, here you go. I'll let them have it." You know what I mean? But I try not to be. I'm just having fun. Unfortunately, and you guys, you know how people are. It's just like I said, how I started the channel to begin with. I wanted to prove somebody wrong in Facebook. Now, I used to. I used to be all in all the Facebook groups, whatever. I mean, I can't take it anymore. You know what I mean? Especially as my channel's gotten bigger, and I've gotten a little bit of popularity in the antenna building world or whatever, ham
Sure.
radio. There's always that guy. You know what I mean? And no matter what you like, if I say something, he's got something to say, and I've found for my mental health and my own well-being, I just sometimes just stay off of social media for a day or two here or there. I'll post a video and I just will ignore it for a day or two so I won't get worked up. And then I'll go back, when I'm in the right frame of mind, and I'll just like, yeah, I'll answer, hey, yeah, hey, sorry it took me so long to get back to you. Delete, back next guy, delete, you just it's how you gotta be now. It's a shame that we have to be that way. But look, I'm just an old fat guy sitting in the sand with a wire in the ear playing radio. It's like, why, come on, that's all I'm just trying to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Uh,
hobby, yeah.
Tom,
Yeah.
any follow-up thoughts from you?
Yeah, well, I'm curious, have you kept all those sketches over the years? And if so, how many do you think you have?
Yeah, I have a lot of different notebooks. Some of the notebooks with the sketches will be me like formulas where all right, I'm gonna make the wire that long and just scribble, and then sometimes I'll take the book with me and operate. And a lot of times when I'm operating, what I log, I have the camera going, so I'll go back. Like what you don't see in my video is I'll make a contact with somebody, and then I'll go, that was 14,320 59 to 57. It's 12:53 da 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 boom, and then I go to the next call, you know what I mean, or whatever. And if I'm hunting, usually because the video will have the date, the signature, the stamp on it, and I can go back and watch it. But as I'm hunting, sometimes you can't see the frequency, and I'll bark that out. But a lot of times too, that same notebook that I have all the sketches in, I have scribbles of logs in it or whatever as well. So to answer your question, I've got them all. It's almost embarrassing if you look through some of the stuff around them, you know what I mean? But I will tell you this: the ones that I put in the book, I did. I did nice them up a little bit. You know what I mean? I went back and redrew them and made them a little bit better. But yeah, but I have them all. I have a lot of them that have never been built. Just ideas at
Sure.
the more I thought about it, the more I thought about it, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, keep us in mind when you get new stuff out, and we'd love
I
to have
will.
you back, and we'll keep an eye on your channel as well. And congratulations on all the success. But I'll tell you what, I mean, you could be telling us how to create ice cubes in northern Canada, and I'd follow you because of your passion. And it's true. I mean,
Thank you.
it becomes infectious. It's like, okay, now I want to get out and fix the hex beam tonight, and then see what else I can do. But probably
Yeah.
not going to happen tonight. But
Well, thank you. I like to come across. I mean, honestly, we're all learning. We'll never stop learning. I tell you, there's guys that have been hams for like you guys for a long, long time, a lot longer than me. And I like to tell everybody in this, I'm nowhere near an expert, but what I like to do is learn. And as I'm learning, kind of document it and write it down. And hopefully my documenting and experimenting and learning and putting it on paper will help someone else as well, as we're all kind of, climbing up that hill together. That's kind of my whole attitude with the channel, with the book, with just me as an operator. You were talking about you used to coach. I coached youth sports my entire life. You wrote a book about that. I mean, that whole experience, I should say, of you kind of like you can look back at the end of the day and say, I accomplished something. I helped somebody. I helped a young man or a young lady or whatever. And that's kind of my attitude with the channel as well. I like I said, I do get a little salty at people every once in a while when they want to get sour with me. But at the end of the day, that's really what I like to, I take most pride in.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time tonight. This was just
Yes.
terrific. I knew it would be. But boy, do you ever get out to the Ham Fest in May out here?
In
Oh
Dayton?
yeah,
Dayton?
I've been to the last two. I was this year and the year before. I'll be back next year.
All right.
I was just in Huntsville week before last too. So
Okay.
that was,
Oh,
Well, we the three of us are involved with the DX dinner on Friday night, as well as the DX forum on Saturday. So if you find yourself out and around, and that was my first real experience with POTA was 2 years ago after our DX forum, where we had really excellent speakers. We had a lot of people. There were open chairs. We had a lot of people. We left, and I realized, oh, I left my DX engineering hat in there. So I went back to get it, and it was the POTA session. They were hanging from the rafters. They were in the halls. I couldn't believe the people. I thought, I got to find out about this. And that's when, and then we had K4SWL on one time, and he's a nut over this.
oh yeah, he's awesome. I love
Yeah.
Thomas. Thomas and I are good friends. He's a good dude. I like him a
Good.
lot.
So
Really?
anyway, that's
Yeah.
really getting legs, and we'll stay on top of that as well. So
And Walt, didn't you do a forum at Hamvention last
I
time?
did. I did. It
Yeah.
was. I like to think it was successful. A lot of people. I was almost shocked when I was standing up there how many people were there. It was pretty. I was very humbling. It really was.
Great.
wow, I'd have bought a cup of coffee to come see you. So
yeah.
or some fish.
Hopefully they'll let me give another one next year. So
I'm
we'll
sure they
definitely all
will.
catch up. Yeah.
Bring
Yeah.
some fish gumbo though, and I'll sit and break it.
There you go.
Share it
I'll
with
do
us.
it.
So. All right, guys, Tom and Joe, and certainly Walt,
Nice to
thank you
meet
for
you,
being
Walt.
with us, and
Lots of luck to you, buddy.
thoroughly
Thank you, guys.
enjoyed it.
This has been a blast.
And,
Yeah.
and this is why Joe and I do this, because we get to meet guys like you and get Tom's input and just have a good time with it. So 7-3s for now. I'll be in touch.
Thanks, 7-3, guys.
We'll see you guys.
Uh-huh.
73.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Good night.
bye-bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the DX Mentor. I would like to thank our sponsors, ICOM America, the Daily DX, DX Engineering, and the Southwest Ohio DX Association. You won't find anyone more committed to DX than these sponsors. I would also like to thank our guests today, Walt, K4OGO, Tom, NR8Z, and Joe, WAGEX. I would love to have your feedback, answer your questions, and provide help with any DX or amateur radio issues that you may have. If you need clarification on something or you just have a question, just email me at thedxmentor@gmail.com. I would especially like to thank you, our listeners and viewers. Without you, there would be no reason to do this. Please drop me a line if you've achieved an all-time new one, received recognition, or have a DX event you would like us to mention. We would be happy to do that. If you're enjoying these DX Mentor episodes, please hit the subscribe button. If you want to follow us and get updates on future YouTube and podcast episodes, as well as DX events and DXpeditions, join the DX Mentor Facebook group. 7-3 for this episode, and thanks to my XYL Karen for her love and support. I hope to see you in the pileups.